Hi friends, it's Monday, August 23rd, and this week I'm trying to figure out my wedding cake. Cut to title. My wedding's in October, and I'm thinking about warm spices and apples and something that's gonna feel seasonal for that time of year, because that's important to me. And also, I really like apple pie. So I'm trying to come up with a cake that evokes those flavors, those feelings, and those ideas. And today's task is to figure out the base recipe that I want to start tweaking. I have two options. We've got a carrot cake base from Gimme Some Oven, which is generally my go-to for that sort of thing. And then I'm trying a new recipe from Sally's Baking Addiction that's also a spice cake, but it's intended to be a spice cake. It's not intended to be a carrot cake. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take each cake recipe and scale it down so it only uses one egg. And that should give me an amount of batter that'll give me enough to try, but not enough that I'm going to be drowning in cake for the next week. This one is the modified carrot cake, and this one is the spice cake. So let's check out. So I'm gonna start with the carrot cake. I don't know if you can hear it. It's super moist. It's making like styrofoam crunching noises coming off the paper. This tastes good, but not having the carrots in it has made it weirdly spongy in an unpleasant way. But I am getting the apple, and the spice presence is nice, but not overwhelming. So that's good. All right, let's try this one. It's still a little warm, so it's not gonna be a perfect comparison, but it should give me enough information. Okay, yeah. Based on texture alone, this one is better. It's much softer and less gummy. I don't know if that's because there's less grated apple in this one or because there's a difference in recipe. This is also a little bit spicier. I'd like to up the amount of apple flavor in this a little bit, but I think the spice cake base is what I'm going to work on modifying for the rest of the week. See you tomorrow. Hi, it's Tuesday, and today I have some more cake experimenting to do, but before I can get to that, I need to sit down and do some math. The recipe that I'm working from is in imperial units, like cups and tablespoons, and I prefer to work in metric because it makes it easier to scale things, because then you don't have to deal with fractions, because fractions suck. So yeah, I'm gonna use the conversion chart on King Arthur's website to go through and convert all of those cup measures when I can find units to convert. If I can't find units to convert when I go through and I test the recipe again, I'll just measure the amount that I'm putting in and then it'll be repeatable for me. The other thing that I need to do today is figure out how much butter I need to substitute. This cake is an oil-based cake, which means that you can substitute butter more or less 1-to-1 if it's melted. I'm doing something a little bit different because I personally believe if you have the opportunity to substitute brown butter into something, you should. But when you brown butter, it evaporates off the water content. In order to make sure that I'm putting the right amount of fat in, I need to account for that water loss. Butter is about 15% fat, more or less. It depends on the kind of butter you get, but I get the relatively cheap commercial kind, and you can usually guess that's about 15% water. Because I'm browning the butter in this recipe, it's gonna lose about 15% of its weight. So I need to figure out the math for how much butter I need to weigh out at the beginning.
Hi,
She's about to get the math wrong, so I'm going to take over the explanation from Post. We need 60 grams of fat for this recipe to work correctly. We don't know how much butter we need to start with to get that number, but we do know that 85% of that butter is fat. So if we divide both sides of this equation by 0.85, that will give us the amount of butter that we actually need to start with. So in total, I need to start this recipe with 71 grams of butter. So I'm gonna go test this, and I will reconvene and let you know how it goes, either tonight or tomorrow. We'll see. Hi guys, it's Wednesday. I'm horribly backlit, and we're gonna keep working on cake today. Current plan is to do 2 variations on the spices. I'm planning on using my standard apple pie spice blend, which trades clove for cardamom and adds in a little bit of lemon zest. But I want to do some experiments with blooming the spices in butter and also leaving out the molasses in the original recipe to see if that lets some of the more delicate spice flavor come through. But I'm going to take you along with me cooking today, and I will stop to have a chat if there's anything super relevant that comes up. Probably the world's saddest lemon, but it should work for zest. What I'm doing here is rubbing the zest into the sugar, and the sugar acts like a little bit of an abrasive and starts to pull some of the oil out of the zest, and you get a lot more flavor out of your citrus zest this way, especially in baked goods. And also my scale is out of battery. That's good. I need to go grind these, so come on. I am reasonably certain the last thing I ground in here was cumin, and before I make my cake taste like cumin, I'm gonna show you something to clean this out real quick. I'm gonna take a little bit of rice and whir it around to get any of the leftover residue out. There we go. Should be nice and clean. You can sieve out the little stringy bits if you want. It doesn't bother me, so I'm just gonna leave them in. Once the butter melts, you want to try and keep it moving, because that means your solids, the nice little nutty brown pieces that we're after, aren't going to get stuck to the bottom of your pan. You can either do what I'm doing and just roll it in your hand over the flame, or you can use a spatula or some other tool to just stir it. And when all of this foaming subsides, that's when we should see the butter start to brown. doing this because it's what I'm more comfortable with. Yep. You can see it starting to go now a little bit. You can see how it's going golden. I'm gonna push it pretty deep because I want a toasty flavor, but I'm also not going to leave it in the pan after I've got it as dark as I want, because if it stays in the pan, it'll burn. So what I'm gonna do, it's starting to look about what I want. I'm gonna kill the heat, put it in a bowl where it won't continue to brown, and really make sure I scrape. Oh, you can't see that. I really want to make sure that I'm scraping every last bit of the good stuff into here. And the other thing that I'm going to do is, since this is very hot, I'm going to go ahead and bloom my spices in here. Just sort of let them sit in the heat and toast a little bit and get all of those nice fat-soluble compounds in there, just to see what that does for my overall flavor profile. Rather than dirty a spatula, I'm just gonna fold it in with the whisk, which is totally possible. And then just add my apple, which made a lovely wet thud. Alright, I have one more test that I want to do, but I'm going to wait and see how these come out first, because if I like the spice balance in these, I'm not going to run another test. That'd just be wasting ingredients. Good morning! I think today is going to be the last day of testing. I am so freaking close. The cupcakes I made yesterday were almost exactly what I wanted. They were just a little bit shy on the cinnamon, or some sort of deeper spice quality that I think cinnamon will give me. If I try it and it's not the cinnamon, then I'll definitely add some molasses back, but I'm fairly certain cinnamon's gonna work. So yeah, today is hopefully the last day of testing that I'm gonna need to do on this recipe, and I can report back with a final answer. But hopefully this isn't too boring. I know you've watched the same cake being made more or less 4 times now, but this is kind of the reality of what testing a new recipe is. You make it, you make a small change, you make it again, and you keep doing that until it's right. Where's the Carmen? And I'm throwing things. We're off to a great start today. So I suppose I ought to ask how you are, what you've been interested in, what you're cooking, if you have any questions for me that you might want me to touch on in other videos, anything like that. Because I think it'd be cool going forward if I could chat with y'all while we cook something together. Obviously right now it's just me talking into a camera, which I gotta tell you feels really, really weird. But it's gotten easier as the week's gone on, so we'll see how this ultimately turns out at the end. I'm gonna get started now that I have kind of everything together, and I'll check back in with you once I pull out what is hopefully the last batch of cupcakes. If you're curious why I'm switching between two scales, this smaller one only weighs 100 grams, but it does it in increments of 1/100th of a gram, whereas my big scale goes up to 11 kilograms, but it does it in single gram units, which means that if I want to measure something under like, I don't know, 15 or 20 grams, the big scale's not very accurate at all. It can be off by as much as 2 grams, which when it comes to something like leavening can make a big difference. So, because I'm going for the biggest amount of precision and accuracy I can, I prefer to use a more precise scale for anything under like 15 grams. I mean, you can do it on the big scale, it'll probably come out fine. This just makes me feel better. Should I have used a smaller scoop for this? Almost certainly. All right, I have my final batch of cupcakes. I haven't tried them yet, see how it tastes. I'm just now realizing that I left the lemon zest out, and I honestly think I like it better because of that mistake. The cardamom comes through a lot more strongly, and I think the cinnamon and the ginger are much better balanced. I mean, this is coming across as warm and comforting and spicy, but not overwhelming. And I think with what I'm planning for the filling and the frosting, this is gonna be perfect. I can't wait to share the recipe with you. If any of this was interesting to you, I would love to hear from you down in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions. If you enjoyed this and want to support what I'm doing, like this video to let me know it was good, or subscribe if you'd like to stick around for more content. See you next week.